Hey, everybody, it's Jonah Lupton, your host of the Startup Sense podcast. Thank you for joining us today. Once again, we have a wonderful episode. We have a wonderful guest. Excited to talk to Eric Horndahl. He is the co-founder of a company called Renoviso. They are based out of Boston. They make home remodeling easy for all of us. So we're going to talk about that. They've raised, I think about $5 million from some angel investors and some VCs and even an angel list syndicate. Growing very, very quickly, and we're going to jump into all that in a second. But first, let's welcome Eric. Eric, how are you?
Thanks, John. I appreciate the opportunity.
Absolutely, man. Thanks for joining us. So you have a really interesting background. You've been you've worked for some really cool startups, two of which have been acquired by other companies. So tell us about your background.
Yeah, so my background is, I spent some time earlier in my career at eBay. And then here on the East Coast, spent 5 years at a company called BuyerZone, which was sold to Rebusiness Information, and then a very successful exit, really in the customer acquisition marketing side of the world. And so kind of grew up as online marketing and growth marketing was becoming more prominent. And then spent, prior to Renoviso, I spent about 6 years at Flipkey, which is a vacation rental marketplace that was acquired by TripAdvisor.
So after that acquisition, when did TripAdvisor buy Flipkey?
That was done in December of 2012, and then I stayed on at TripAdvisor through April of 2015.
Okay, cool. How early were you at Flipkey? What employee number were you, if you happen to remember?
Yeah, less than 10, right around
Wow.
the 9 or 10 mark, and we had just launched about 6 months prior to me joining, and my role was really to build an entire new part of the business, which is the rental owner side of the business. So yeah, I was, and I also managed all of marketing as well. So joined the team very early there.
You obviously learned a ton of stuff from Flipkey that is probably extremely relevant as you're building your new company, Renoviso, right?
Absolutely. I mean, customer acquisition, customer retention, product management. I was involved in quite a bit there and had some great colleagues like TJ Mahoney, who founded the company and is actually one of the investors in Renoviso, and so learned quite a bit from him and the other co-founders as well, and the team at large. So yeah, it was a great experience and certainly was something that's been very helpful to us as we build Renoviso.
Cool. So talk about your new company. What exactly does Renoviso do?
Yeah, so Renoviso, like you mentioned, we transform how homeowners complete small renovation projects, such as replacing your windows or your hardwood floors, really via technology, transparency, and an exceptional customer experience end to end. And so what makes us different from the traditional ways that you could go ahead and replace your windows is you can actually go online, you can get customized pricing, accurate pricing, that includes the installation service, and then Renoviso actually handles the entire project, including payments, including the installation service through our highly curated network of contractors that we work with. So our goal is really to make the experience easy, pleasant, and ultimately for the customer to have a great outcome at the end of the day.
So transparency is probably a big thing for homeowners, right? I mean, I think we're all afraid, we bring someone into our house to replace our windows, our floors, do a small project, and they end up billing us 3 times what we thought it was going to be, right? I mean, that's got to be an issue that you guys run into.
Absolutely, and that's part of the origin of the company. Is I actually went through an experience where I had one of the well-known window replacement companies out to my house, and endured this 3-hour high-pressure sales visit just to get a price, and the price was outrageous. And ironically enough, I had been connecting with a former colleague of mine who's the co-founder of Renoviso, Brian Waldman, and shared that experience with him. And he actually had a very similar experience years ago on a siding project that is exactly what you talked about. And, we talked about really solving that problem as homeowners ourselves and seeing a really big opportunity to leverage our experience, leverage technology, and deliver an amazing customer experience that would create a big venture. Just given the market size and given the pain that existed in the market today. So absolutely, that transparency is a big thing with us, and which is why we're very focused on, certainly a part of our value proposition is delivering accurate online pricing and being very transparent with consumers when things happen that you don't necessarily expect.
So the company was started, I think you said March 2015, right?
That's correct. Yep.
So still pretty early. What areas of the country are you guys focused on? I know you're, started in the Boston area. Are you guys just in New England at this point?
Yes, we started with just vinyl windows in the Boston metropolitan area, and we've since expanded into all of eastern New England, so Massachusetts, Rhode Island, southern New Hampshire, and a slice of Connecticut. And we've also expanded beyond just vinyl windows to all windows, wood windows, vinyl windows, composite windows, as well as patio doors, entry doors, and then most recently hardwood flooring.
What's been the biggest piece of the business so far? Which one of those verticals?
Certainly, windows is where we got started, so that is the largest piece. But we're seeing really nice traction with doors, both patio doors and entry doors, and then hardwood flooring is early, but it's starting to materialize as well.
Okay, cool. Take us back to the beginning of the company then. So you were with Flipkey, they got acquired by TripAdvisor. Did you leave TripAdvisor and then, kind of thought about what you wanted to do next, or was this idea already planted in your head? So the second you left TripAdvisor, you started working on Renoviso right away?
Yeah, the latter. So like I said, Brian Waldman, who was at Merchant Warehouse, was also thinking about his next opportunity, and he reached out to me. And I ironically was thinking about what's next for myself, and we decided we wanted to start a company together because we had a great experience working together previously at a company called Buyer Zone, which I mentioned earlier. And I had shared this experience that I had that I just mentioned. And so we had things, in terms of the idea, pretty well formulated by the time that we actually left our positions to get going on Renoviso.
So in order for you to, begin bringing in customers or do any marketing, you need to build some sort of a platform, which is going to revolve around technology. You guys aren't necessarily technical yourselves. So how did you go about making that happen?
Yeah, so that's a great question, and I think certainly relevant for folks that are non-technical. So again, Brian and I had a lot of experience at high-growth, technology-oriented companies, but not engineers ourselves. And so we, based on our own experiences, decided not to outsource it overseas, given some experiences that we've observed over the years, and decided to work with, we really wanted to work with a local development firm that would enable us to build the MVP, right? The minimum viable product that we needed to generate some traction and prove that to investors and to ourselves that this concept was viable. And we ended up, interviewing and talking to a number of folks in the area, and ended up choosing a development firm called Barbershop Labs right here in Massachusetts. And we were very involved in the product development process. And it enabled us to meet with them on a regular basis and really be very involved in the development process. And ultimately, it was a successful venture, and that it built the platform that enabled us to close on our seed round later that year.
So what sold you on Barbershop Labs? I mean, I'm sure you guys have, each have a lot of connections to other, development shops, but, what convinced you that Barbershop was going to be the right team to work with?
Yeah, I think they in terms of balancing out cost and quality, and just philosophically, there was a lot of alignment, and certainly they had some other clients that we had spoken with. There was one entrepreneur in particular that Brian and I, and Brian in particular, knew well, and they had used Barbershop and had great success with them. So that certainly, meant a lot to us as well.
So you guys, both of you, threw in the money, paid for all the development yourselves, so I guess that's considered bootstrapping. After Barbershop, got you whatever version, you guys wanted and felt comfortable with. At what point did you go to market with that, or did you use that, platform or prototype, whatever you want to call it, to then raise more money or to raise your first round of outside money?
Yeah, no, we went to market with that. So that's what we launched with in March, and we did some local marketing. And again, this was, vinyl windows in Boston, and had some customers and started doing some projects and showing that, hey, this is, customers, this concept is really resonating with customers. And then a few months later after the launch is when we actually started pursuing our seed round. So we absolutely launched with the product that Barbershop built. And we brought our technology team in-house after we closed the seed round in later that summer.
Okay, so you guys had some traction when you went to go raise your first round, which I think is important for the listeners to know. That, I mean, this is the way that a lot of entrepreneurs do it. You know, they bootstrap that first version, take it to market, get some customers, get some people paying, bring some revenue in the door, and then they go out and raise some money.
Yeah, and I think another thing is, you know, I know our investors were very impressed with, given how much money we spent, you know, what we were able to deliver in terms of the end product. And so that was, you know, it just shows that you've got the ability and the know-how to build a product with relatively little resources, and that's what they're looking for as investors. So I think it was critically important that we exhibited that.
Do you feel comfortable sharing how much money you guys spent on that first version of the product with Barbershop?
I prefer not to disclose how much we spent, but it was not a significant amount of money in terms of, you know, what you'd expect, less than six figures.
This is Jonah Lupton, founder of the Lupton Group and host of the Startup Sense podcast. Are you struggling to find the right tech team to build your company's website or mobile app? Maybe you've developed a product but need help with your go-to-market strategy, including branding and marketing. Well, stop worrying, because my team at the Lupton Group can assist you with all of those needs. We specialize in helping entrepreneurs and startups of all sizes launch and grow their businesses. For a free consultation, you can email me at jonahlupton@gmail.com or visit our website at luptongroup.co. So in the beginning, what was your marketing strategy? You know, you guys had to go out and acquire these customers for the platform. How were you finding them? How were you finding the people that needed, you know, these small home improvement renovation jobs?
Yeah, so part of our DNA and our background is in growth marketing and online marketing in particular. So using a lot of those channels and finding people that were looking for information, looking for providers online was really where we tend to attract a lot of our customers, even today. So those were, you know, some of the early channels, certainly search. There's a number of sites out there that are listing, you know, home service providers, such as an Angie's List. And those are channels which, you know, customers find us certainly back then and certainly today even more so, as our reputation and the number of reviews and has grown on those platforms.
How has your marketing strategy changed over the last, you know, 18 to 20 months as you guys have raised more money? Has you been able to put more into marketing? Yeah.
So, you know, initially when we were bootstrapping, you know, we put enough into marketing to prove that we could acquire customers and to, you know, have some sense in terms of what the customer acquisition metrics were going to look like, obviously on a really small scale. And so now that we've raised, you know, money, both the seed round and then our latest Series A round, certainly expanding the number of channels and broadening the portfolio in terms of, you know, in the beginning, you know, we were maybe only in a couple of channels, and now we've really broadened that into a much more diversified portfolio of marketing channels.
I mean, of all the marketing channels that you guys are currently using to bring in customers, is there one where, you know, surprisingly it's been more effective than you thought it would be, or a channel that maybe hasn't worked out as well as you hoped it would?
I think, you know, in terms of, well, pretty much what we expected. I think, you know, search is a good channel for us. I think those directory-oriented websites are good channels for us. I think display is a little bit, can be tricky because of the targeting. You know, it's hard to identify when somebody actually has the need for our product. Right. So I have a lot of background and success in Facebook advertising in particular, and that's not a significant channel for us, just because of the nature of the targeting. So, you know, I don't think we're surprised by that, but that's certainly an observation that we've had over the last 18 months.
Is there software out there that you guys are able to use where when people go onto social media and start mentioning to their friends or to their networks that they're looking for a home improvement person, are you able to capture that conversation and then use that as kind of a warm lead to reach out to them?
Yeah, there's certainly things like that we do, as well as obviously retargeting, which is a powerful channel. And so, yeah, I mean, absolutely, there's a lot of tactics in terms of that, in terms of, you know, when people are indicating a need and then reaching out to them via advertising that you know, which is what's great about online advertising and just given how much data is out there. And we certainly leverage that to the extent that we can.
Cool. Talk to us about some of what are the metrics that you like to look at on a daily or weekly basis to, determine how the company's doing and if you're growing in the right ways?
Yeah, so our key metrics really are oriented around obviously, traffic, right? So getting them into the door, and then in terms of our conversion rates on the website. So the key conversion on the website is the number of people that are configuring orders, getting a price, and then deciding they want to take the next step, which is booking an in-home consultation and measurement visit with one of our installers. So that conversion rate is key, and then the conversion rate, and then once we do the in-home visit, the customer will then make a financial commitment if they want to move forward with the project. So certainly that conversion is also critical, and then our overall cost of acquisition. Those are some of our key metrics as I just think about our funnel in terms of when people first learn about Renoviso all the way through to when they complete a project. And then certainly NPS, Net Promoter Score, is a critical metric given that we're orienting the company and building the company around delivering an exceptional, highly differentiated customer experience. That's a huge metric that we all look at the company, and it's something it's very, very important to us to make sure that we deliver that, both because that's the DNA of the company, and then also because we believe it's a really important growth channel for us. A lot of folks are choosing, home service providers based on referrals and recommendations and reviews. And so, we believe that's going to be a critical growth channel for us long term.
So talk to us about your sales funnel, if you can, whether you want to talk about the actual, companies that you're using as part of your sales stack or any tweaks that you've made to your sales funnel that have increased conversions, in a considerable way.
Yeah, I think the big thing for us is that in the early days, and it was just Brian and I, we would actually go on a lot of those in-home measurement visits to learn, right, and to figure out, to really optimize the sales process. And so we have moved away from that, where most of our activity now is done via the phone. So we're sending the installer out to do the in-home visit, and then our sales team here, our in-house sales team, is then educating the customer and communicating directly with the customer in terms of whether they want to move forward. And so, there's been a lot of learnings that have resulted from that transition, because traditionally these products are sold in the home. And so, most of our traditional competitors, they're sending a salesperson out to the home. They're not providing a price up front. Like my experience, they're, quote unquote, trapping customers into these long, high pressure appointments. And then they're expecting those customers to then sign a commitment to move forward at that in-home appointment. So we have a completely different approach where we're providing upfront pricing. We're confirming the details by going on site, and then we're then following up later with customers via the phone and email with their final project details, and then giving them the time to make an informed decision in terms of what they want to do moving forward.
So have you found that your process of doing it, your way of doing it, is you have a higher closing rate than some of your competitors?
Yeah, I'm not going to get into the details of exactly what our close rates are, but absolutely. And part of it is because we're setting the expectations up front. So the customer already has the price on the website. So, if they're interested in and they have the right expectations, then when we go out and we actually do the visits, obviously the customer has already decided that they're interested in moving forward at the price that they've seen. So,
right.
We find that, we have a much higher close rate than the traditional industry because of that unique approach.
And you waste a lot less time, going to someone's house and then you give them the price and like, oh, wow, I can't afford this. And it's like, okay, well, there goes 2 hours of our adjuster's time.
Yeah. And cost, right, as well. Those salespeople that many in the industry employ are not cheap. Right. And so, and they're spending 3-4 hours of their time. And absolutely, that's a big part of the play here, is that, we believe that we're creating more efficiency in the market and therefore able to offer our customers with a better experience, but at a better price as well.
So talk to us about, this is an interesting question, where you guys, you and Brian both have a ton of experience in marketing and lead gen and building teams and sales organizations. but I don't think you guys are necessarily home improvement experts. So you jumped into an industry that's enabled by technology and driven by marketing, but it's still in an industry that you guys are not experts in. So how have you guys kind of forced yourself to become experts, within this industry?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think we take a lot of pride in having become experts in the industry. So you're right. When we first got started, we knew very little about it, and I think that's part of what I think drove the model. Right, is that we were coming from the outside and we weren't necessarily blinded by sort of this is the way it's always been done. We were looking at it more from how, as homeowners, do we want to be treated? What's the experience that we want to see? And that's how we sort of architected the consumer experience. And then since we decided to start the company in this particular space, we've become very, very knowledgeable. Working with and many of our partners have been great. So we are, Harvey Windows is one of our partners on the manufacturing side, and they've been really helpful to us in terms of educating us. And we've taken a number of education classes. We've hired people that do come from within the industry that have also that helped. And so, we have, while we ourselves certainly we're not experts at the beginning, we have learned quite a bit, and now I think are bona fide experts. And then we also have people on the team that certainly came from within the industry and have a lot of knowledge in various areas, including the contracting side, the installation side of our business. It's really, really important. So, we have a great team member who runs that side of the business, who has 15 years of contracting experience across many of the trades and has relationships with a lot of contractors, and has done a great job of managing that part of the business.
So I think you just led into a great topic that I want to jump into, which is building the team, recruiting. Boston, very competitive, lots of, venture-backed companies up there competing for the same type of talent. And I'm sure you would agree that, if you can't bring the right people into the organization, it's hard to grow a company, especially as fast as you want to grow. So, when it comes to recruiting, building culture, what's been your strategy? What's working for you guys?
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head, which is it's incredibly important. And for us, when we closed in our seed round, up until our closing the seed round, it was just Brian and myself. And then we quickly built a really strong early team addressing, some of the key areas in the business. So we talked about technology early on. So we brought on a tremendous VP of engineering who's done a terrific job for us, who's really built that part of the organization. We brought on our installation operations manager to address what we just talked about. And then some other folks as well, our head of marketing, our head of customer experience, who both worked with me actually at FlipKey. So part of it is leveraging our network in terms of finding those early people, and then doing a lot of network. And it's a lot of hustle in terms of finding the right people. But I think we've done and Brian and I both have a lot of experience with hiring, building teams, et cetera. So we leverage a lot of that in terms of our hiring process. And so, I think we've done a really nice job of, I think, if you asked me or Brian what we're most proud of, I think it's the team. We really feel like we have an exceptional team that's right now about 15 people as of the end of January here. So, we're really excited about the foundation that we built to take advantage of this opportunity.
So that was an interesting point you made where you recruited a couple people that you had worked with at FlipKey. Had they also transitioned over to TripAdvisor and then were probably looking for something new as well?
That's correct. Yeah, and they had reached out to me directly. So they had worked with me at FlipKey, and they obviously knew about what I was doing, and they were really excited about the concept and excited about being part of something early. And so they had reached out to me, knowing that I was here, and it was a great fit. And then, other folks we've gotten through our network, and then certainly, more recently as we've grown, sort of leveraging recruiters. It's a variety of different strategies that we've used. But you're right, recruiting is a very difficult. It takes a lot of time. It takes a lot of hustle, a lot of perseverance. And it's something that you just can't take any shortcuts with, because ultimately, the first 10, 15, 20 people of your company are going to determine the ultimate success of the company and the culture, which is so incredibly important. So it's something that we've spent a lot of time on and really focused on.
I would totally agree. I feel like whenever I read blog posts from former founders, talking about why their company didn't succeed, half the time it's because they didn't hire the right people in the beginning.
Yeah, and I think that's where, and then I think investors saw that in Brian and myself as well. The fact that we had built and led large teams. Brian built a large team at Merchant Warehouse. I managed over 50 people at one point at Flipkey, which was entirely built. All those people came after me. So we have a lot of experience with that. I think that was something that was attractive from an investment perspective, knowing exactly what we're talking about, which is you've got to be able to build the team to take advantage of the opportunity. And I think people recognize that in us and our ability to do that.
So talk to us about fundraising. I mean, you've worked for venture-backed companies, so I mean, you understand the importance of having enough capital to grow quickly. So obviously, you guys jumped into this knowing that you would have to raise money eventually. But how did you attract that first seed round of capital? How many investors did you approach? What was your strategy, I guess, for getting the right people to believe in the company?
Yeah, so that's a great question. I think we ran a really disciplined process. I think we spent a lot of time before we started raising on getting our story right, getting the deck right, making sure that we had a really well thought out, kind of vision in terms of exactly what our story was and what the key metrics were and exactly what our operational plan was going to be. And so that was critically important. And then the other part of it was identifying the right investors, right? So in Boston, there's a lot of investors that only invest in SaaS companies. And so, we needed to find investors that were interested and were actively investing in, consumer internet companies in the Boston areas where we started. So, once we identified that very targeted list and had the story down, then it really came down to getting introductions to folks that we didn't necessarily know. There were some folks, in the Boston area in particular that we had relationships with from our previous experience or had direct connections with. And I think, from there, it just kind of happened in terms of, once we started having some good conversations. And then in particular, once NextView committed with the term sheet to lead our seed round, they were very helpful in helping us round out the rest of the syndicate in terms of introductions to other folks in New York and in Boston. But we focused our entire fundraising process in New York and Boston for the seed round.
Yeah, makes sense. I mean, I think most investors tend to invest in their local markets if they can, and especially in cities like Boston, New York, and San Francisco, there's plenty of deal flow for them to stay local. So with regards to your investors, I usually like to throw this question out there. What is the single best piece of advice that any of your investors has given you thus far?
That's a great question. I think, probably in terms of the team, I think, you mentioned it, which is, they have, but our investors have been great. I mean, they're really hands off. They help us in the areas that they really know well, like the fundraising market. So our investors were really, really helpful when we raised the A round. Our seed investors were really helpful when we raised the A round. But in terms of operationally how to run the business, they recognize that Brian and I have a lot of experience, and some of the folks that we've recruited as well that are now managing pieces of the business. And certainly they'll provide good ideas, and I think they can leverage. They have much more of a macro view of the world. So a tactic or a strategy that might be working at some other company that they're aware of, they'll surface that to us. And I think that's where our investors are most helpful in terms of, being able to surface things like that and connections on the business development side and on the learning side as well. So for instance, we're in the process of actually expanding geographically right now, launching our first brand new city, beyond New England. And our investors have been very helpful in connecting us to some folks who have done it before, and learning, being able to talk to them and learn what went well, what didn't go well. Those are sorts of the things that I think our investors have been most helpful. Recruiting is another area. They've been very helpful in being able to connect us with folks, with potential candidates that ultimately, like, for instance, our VP of engineering, who we hired, was a direct result of a connection that was made by NextView Ventures. So I think recruiting is also another area where our investors have been really, really helpful.
What will the expansion strategy be going forward? Are you guys just going to continue to kind of creep down the East Coast?
Exactly. So our next market will be on the East Coast, somewhere in the Northeast corridor, and then we'll expand. Very similar to what you'd expect from some of these on-demand companies, where we'll go into our next market, and then maybe we'll launch a couple of markets all at once, and then you'll continue to see acceleration as we fine-tune our game plan and our playbook for geographic expansion. But in the early days, it will be, we want to get it right and not expand too fast. I think we've certainly learned or read about companies that have expanded too fast and then they end up, not making it. And so,
right.
We want to be really thoughtful about how we approach expansion, both from a geographic perspective and also from a vertical perspective as well. As I mentioned earlier, right now we offer four product categories, and we are also working on our next category for the spring. And so, but being very thoughtful and very systematic about how we expand from both perspectives.
How far can you take this in terms of product offerings? I mean, will you guys at some point be doing, like large additions on homes or complete kitchen remodels? I mean, is that stuff coming down the pipeline, you think?
Yeah, I mean, I would say the kitchen remodeling will be probably before we do additions. But yeah, everything's in scope, and certainly right now we're very focused on sort of isolated small renovation projects like windows, like potentially roofing, like if you need a new fence, if you need a new countertop. But yeah, as we start to get more and more traction, you'll start to see consumers that will have a need for multiple services all at once. And, we'll need to continue to evolve the user experience in the website and then our business around that. So, it's certainly not something that we're doing tomorrow necessarily. We believe that what we're doing right now, there's big market opportunity just in the categories that we're offering today and some of the new ones that we're looking at that are more isolated. But yeah, absolutely. I would say that, kitchen remodeling is certainly something that we think about long term.
What is the average kind of customer order or average project size? Are you able to give us any ranges? I mean, I'm sure it depends, right? I mean, if you're coming in and doing, 5 windows versus 50 windows, I mean, that's obviously going to be a huge price difference. Or maybe the better question is, because that might be a tough one, is how often are you seeing repeat business from the same customers?
Yeah, we're seeing a healthy amount of that actually, and a lot of folks, might only, they might start with doing one floor or one room of the house on a particular project, or they do their windows and now they want a new front door, new back door, new patio door. So, given how young the business is, it's been really encouraging to see the early fruits of that repeat business and referral business as well. Someone that their neighbor, they're referring their neighbor, they're referring their family members. We're seeing a lot of that as well. And I think that's something we knew going in, that home improvement, and one of the challenges of the early days is that, it's really important for us to have social proof and have, a reputation because that's how a lot of people choose their providers in this particular space. And so, yeah, we are seeing that a lot. And and in terms of the average project size, it will vary. Like you said, there may be somebody who has a condo in Boston that might only have 3 or 4 windows, and that's all they need, and that's totally fine. And then we've done projects where someone's replacing, 30, 35 windows in their entire house with wood windows, which are more expensive than vinyl windows. So, really runs the gamut in terms of project size.
Yeah, not surprising. Do you guys have any sort of a reward system or program set up for those customer referrals?
Not currently, actually. It's certainly something that we're starting to explore, but as of up to date, there's no direct incentive. It's really about our thesis there is, deliver a great differentiated customer experience, and people are going to be happy to refer you because they want their friends and other folks that they know that need that same service to benefit from the way that they did, and they don't necessarily need a direct incentive to do so. But we are definitely looking into ways to accelerate that activity.
What is one thing? I mean, you don't have to limit it just to one, but what is something that you've learned over the last 2 years that's made you a better CEO today?
Yeah, I think for me, one of the things we have to constantly remind ourselves is just everything takes longer than you think it will. And so having patience, obviously we think is important to, setting the right strategy, setting the right goals and milestones, and then, being very persistent. And certainly we have a bias towards action, and we're always, we're very, very good at execution. But having patience and letting things develop has been something that, as entrepreneurs, and I think, people have expectations that things are going to work right away, and certainly making sure that you have patience and perseverance, I think, is something that we think about a lot, in what we've learned over the last 18 to 24 months.
What's the biggest challenge that you or your team has faced over the last couple of years and had to overcome?
Yeah, I think a big challenge in the early days, and particularly, as we continue to move forward, is we are transforming consumer behavior in this category. Right. And so, I think that's an ongoing challenge in terms of how do we architect the best and optimal user experience in order to be successful in doing that. Very much like how, if you think about Uber in terms of the behavior before Uber came along, in terms of, hailing taxis or calling a taxi, it's totally different now. And so, they had to deal with that as well. And that's something that, we believe that we're transformative, and, just how exactly to get exactly the formula right to take advantage of that opportunity.
Right. Getting the name out there is definitely a challenge for any startup. But I assume the home improvement business, it's got to be in the hundreds of billions of dollars, right?
Yeah, the overall industry category is a $300 billion market in the U.S. So it's a big market that we're tackling. And even Windows alone is a $20 billion market. So and you've got huge companies out there that are just doing windows or just doing exterior remodeling. And these are big. This is a big industry. So I think the challenge, is the thing I wouldn't want to understate is that this is a high consideration purchase, right? People are spending thousands of dollars on these sorts of products. So it's not something that you just, go online, click on an ad, and decide you're going to just do, right away. So there's a consideration process, and you've got to earn it with via trust and delivering great customer service and a great customer experience, both online and offline as well, through our sales team and our customer experience people and so forth. So, that's going to be an ongoing challenge in terms of, brand awareness and being able to take advantage of that.
Awesome. Couple last questions I'll fire off kind of quick at you. I don't want to take up too much of your Friday here. I'm sure you're a busy guy, but do you have a favorite piece of software that you use on a daily basis to help run the company better?
Trello is probably our favorite internal productivity tool. We played around with a couple, but yeah, we have a bunch of boards, set up for every functional part of the organization, and we found that to be a great lightweight project management tool, much better in our opinion than some others that we've used. So I would go with Trello. It's
funny because I literally just signed up for Trello this morning. So
yeah, no, I couldn't. We used it a little bit at Flipkey, which was when I first started using it, and then we've really adopted it. Starting in the very early days, and not just for our, product development and Scrum and things like that, but also our marketing priorities, lots of different, our content development priorities for the blog. It's all organized via Trello, so it's a great tool.
Interesting. Okay. Yeah. That does sound pretty useful then, especially now. Is all your team in one place, or are you guys distributed?
We are all in one place.
Okay. And you guys are in Boston, Faneuil Hall?
That is right. We have a newly renovated office right in the Faneuil Hall marketplace, which is our home. So yeah, we've got, like I mentioned earlier, we'll be 15 people by the end of the month or early February.
Awesome. Are you guys hiring more for the marketing side or technology?
Really across all areas. So we just added an engineer, and we have a head of product design who's starting soon, looking for another marketing person. And then on the operations side, it's important that we continue to add folks there that have the experience and have the knowledge, on the installation side as well.
Cool. Boston, I love Boston. Faneuil Hall, just such a cool place to work. I mean, you can step out of your office and, see 50, 100 restaurants and bars within, 30-second walk. So pretty cool.
Yeah, it's been great. And we, Brian and I actually live outside the city, but we intentionally chose the city from a recruiting perspective.
Yeah, right.
Because it's really important to attract talent. So again, showing our orientation around how important the team is. It's important to be in an attractive location too. Like you said, it's a challenge. In terms of recruiting, there's a lot of competitors out there, a lot of other companies looking for talent. So you've got to try to find an edge any way you can.
If you could be mentored by anybody, who would it be?
I really look up to the other entrepreneurs that have built really significant consumer internet companies in Boston. So Steve Koffer is somebody that I had some interaction with at TripAdvisor and in Nearest as well at Wayfair. So those are two entrepreneurs that I look up to that were 10, 15 years ahead of us, and hopefully, we'll be in that category. That's our aspiration is to be the next Wayfair, to be the next TripAdvisor in the Boston area. So if I had to answer that, those would be two folks that I look up to.
And Niraj from Wayfair is one of your investors, right?
He is one of our investors. Yep.
Awesome.
Exactly. Yeah.
And last question, do you have a favorite blog that you follow?
Not really. One, in terms of keeping up with fundraising and that side of things, Mattermark has been a great source of news. And I read a lot of the growth marketing blogs, just going back to my old, my marketing background. And so there's a number of SEO and growth marketing blogs that I read on a relatively regular basis as well.
And Mattermark actually just launched a new newsletter called Raise the Bar, which is more sales and marketing geared, which is pretty cool. So I
saw that. That's great. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It's just a great because you don't have to necessarily follow all the individual blogs, and it's a daily newsletter you get once a day. And I've found it to be a great source to kind of keep ahead, because that is one thing that's challenging as an entrepreneur. We're so focused on our own business. You've got your head in the sand a little bit, and that's where our investors are very helpful. But you don't have a lot of time to necessarily be reading blogs and things like that. So having a source of information that curates that information for you is super helpful for entrepreneurs.
Totally agree. Couldn't have said it any better myself. Well, I'll end it there, man. I really want to thank you for coming on the show, being a guest. Loved hearing what you had to say. It's exciting to hear what Renoviso is doing right now. Obviously, I'll put all the contact information in the show notes, but for anyone still listening, the website is renoviso.com. What's the best way for people to reach you?
They can just reach me at eric@renoviso.com.
Okay, cool. I'll put your email address in there as well. Are you guys, is the company active, particularly active any social media channels?
We certainly are active on Facebook and Twitter. Those are probably our most active channels. I think we have other channels as well, but those are the two we use most frequently.
Okay, cool. I'll add those as well then. Well, thank you so much, man. Any parting words you want to share with the audience?
No, I thank you for the opportunity to tell our story a little bit, and hopefully the folks out there listening, got a few tidbits of knowledge that will help them potentially, be successful in their own ventures.
And if they have any upcoming home improvement projects they need help with, they should certainly go to your company, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, that's what we have just go check out our reviews online, and you will not be disappointed.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, man. Enjoy the rest of your day. Happy New Year, and we'll talk again soon.
You too. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Bye. Bye.